Some nights, the city didn't feel like a place of dreams. It felt like a cage made of glass and steel, and Zara was just one of the countless souls rattling against the bars. The restaurant Viridian was the most beautiful part of that cage. A jewel box of hushed conversations, clinking crystal, and the scent of money so old it was practically odorless. From her station by the service bar, Zara watched the performance. She was part of the scenery, a ghost in a crisp white shirt, black skirt, and a crimson apron that felt like a brand. 23 years old, and her life was a repeating loop of polished silverware and feigned smiles. She moved between tables with a practiced grace that disguised the bone-deep weariness, her mind a million miles away, sketching designs for a life she couldn't afford to build. Every patron was a character in a play she wasn't invited to read. They were architects of the skyline she could only stare at, their laughter echoing in a key she didn't understand. She saw them, but they never saw her. She was a function, a pair of hands delivering a plate of seared scallops. Tonight, the air was different, thicker. A low hum of electricity that had nothing to do with the dim, artfully arranged chandeliers. It arrived with him. He entered not with a bang, but with a sudden, chilling silence that fell over the immediate area like a velvet shroud. His name, she would learn later, was Min Jun. He was around 35, dressed in a suit so dark it seemed to absorb the light around it. His face was a study in sharp angles and severe control, his eyes holding a stillness that was more unnerving than any overt threat. Two other men, shadows in his wake, flanked him. One was broad and watchful, the other leaner, with a nervous energy that he tried to hide behind a practiced smile. They took the corner booth, the one with a panoramic view of the glittering, indifferent city. It was Zara's section. She took a breath, smoothed her red apron, and walked toward the eye of the storm. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the restaurant's quiet symphony of strings. She approached the table, her training kicking in like muscle memory. "Good evening. May I start you with something to drink?" Her voice was steady, a small miracle. Min Jun didn't look at the menu. He didn't look at her, not really. His gaze was distant, fixed on the sprawling cityscape beyond the floor-to-ceiling window. It was the lean one, Hyun, who answered, his smile a little too wide. "3 whiskeys. Your best," the broad one. Deacon just nodded, his eyes methodically scanning the room, cataloging exits, faces, threats. Zara retreated, her skin prickling. There was a power at that table that felt primal, dangerous. It was the power of men who didn't ask for things, but took them. She returned with the drinks, placing them on the dark wood with hands she prayed were steady. As she set down the last glass in front of Min Jun, his eyes finally lifted to meet hers. For a split second, the mask of indifference slipped. She saw a flicker of something ancient and weary in their depths, a loneliness that resonated with her own. Then it was gone, replaced by the same unnerving calm. She was about to ask for their order when she saw it. A tiny, dancing point of crimson light. It appeared on the crisp white tablecloth first, a frantic little insect. Then it climbed, crawling up the lapel of Min Jun's immaculate suit. It settled directly over his heart. Time seemed to warp, stretching and slowing. The distant chatter of the restaurant faded to a dull roar. The clink of a fork hitting a plate sounded like a gunshot. Zara's mind screamed. It was a laser, a sight, from one of the 1,000 darkened windows across the street. Her life, her dreams of fashion school, her tiny apartment, her exhaustion, it all evaporated. There was only that single, malevolent red. She didn't think. There was no room for thought, only a surge of pure, unadulterated instinct. While Deacon scanned the room and Hyun smiled his empty smile, Zara saw the real threat. In the space of a single heartbeat, she moved. "Get down." The words were a strangled cry as she lunged, not away, but forward. She threw her entire body against Min Jun, her shoulder crashing into his chest. The force of the impact sent them both tumbling sideways off the plush booth seat. The world exploded. A deafening crack, followed by the crystalline shatter of the massive window. Glass rained down like diamonds, and the night air rushed in, cold and sharp. Screams erupted around them. Chaos bloomed. On the floor, tangled with a man who dealt in death, Zara's cheek was pressed against the fine wool of his suit. All she could smell was expensive cologne and the metallic tang of imminent violence. The immediate aftermath was a blur of motion and sound. Deacon was already on his feet, a weapon appearing in his hand as if from thin air, his body a shield between the shattered window and the floor. Hyun was shouting into a phone, his voice sharp and laced with panic. Patrons were screaming, scrambling under tables, a wave of terror washing through the curated elegance of Viridian. Zara, however, was trapped in a bubble of surreal quiet. Her ears rang. Minjun's weight was heavy on top of her, his arm protectively, reflexively, thrown across her back. She could feel the solid, tense muscle of his body, the surprisingly steady beat of his heart against her own frantic pulse, the heart that was still beating because of her. He shifted, rolling off her with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for a man his size. He didn't look at the chaos, at his men, at the gaping hole in the window. He looked directly at her. His eyes, dark and piercing, held no gratitude, only a cold, calculating intensity that stripped her bare. "Who are you?" His voice was low, a gravelly whisper that cut through the noise. Before she could answer, Deacon was there, hauling her to her feet with a grip of iron. "We have to move." Now, they weren't heading for the main exit. Deacon propelled her toward the kitchen, a whirlwind of panicked chefs and flying pans parting before them like the sea. The heat, the smells of garlic and searing meat, were a shocking contrast to the cold terror of the dining room. Minjun followed close behind, his hand resting on the small of her back, not as a comfort, but as a brand of ownership. He was guiding her, controlling her, ensuring his asset, or his problem, didn't get away. They burst through the rear exit into a grimy alley that stank of grease and old rain. A black sedan, sleek and menacing, screeched to a halt beside them. Hyun was already holding the back door open. "Get in," Deacon grunted, pushing Zara inside. She stumbled onto the supple leather seats. Minjun slid in beside her, the door slamming shut with a heavy, final thud. The car peeled out, tires screaming on the wet asphalt, throwing her against him. The world outside became a smear of neon and darkness. She was trapped, a prisoner in a steel box with a man whose life she had just saved, and who now looked at her as if she were a puzzle he was about to solve by taking it apart, piece by piece. "Talk," Minjun commanded, his voice leaving